wanted to welcome everyone to the special meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board. Today is Friday, January 15th. Time is 1:02. Begin with the roll call. Ms. Kirby. Pam Kirby. Kim Hartman.
George Jackson.
Barbara Philbrick. And Bonnie Sneed. All members are present. A quorum is present. Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is an action item. 3A, approve the issuance of a request for proposal for consulting services to assist the governing board in the search for a new Scottsdale Unified School District Superintendent. The board will discuss and may vote to follow an expedited time frame for the RFP process. I'll just give the background. The purpose of the request for proposal is to obtain a qualified vendor capable of assisting the governing board in the search process for a new superintendent. Due to the immediate need to begin the process, the governing board will discuss and may vote to follow an expedited time frame for the RFP process. For this procurement, it's necessary to compare different price, quality, and contractual factors, to conduct discussions with offerers, and to award a contract in which price alone is not the determining factor. Therefore, competitive field bidding is not practical or advantageous to the district, and competitive field proposal method is used. Do you have any comments or questions from board members? Go ahead. Oh, Ms. Hartman.
Ms. Marshall already sent us the contract, or the RFP, not contract, in advance, and so I already responded via email. So do we need to, I just want to let you know, I think you've got all my feedback at this time. Oh, but also I wanted to just also thank you for pulling that information together in a good baseline for us to work on it.
Sure. And just to clarify, that was a draft statement of work, which if we're good with that, we can get the process going. And the timeline that I shared with you, where we put in an advertisement and then a second advertisement needs to go in 6 days, but no more than 10 days later, is the actual timeline that's set forth in the administrative code. And so we included in your action item, if you wanted to discuss doing it in any shorter time, and I've got purchasing on standby if we have any real technical questions. If you wanted to do it in a shorter time, the board does have that power to shorten that time frame. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is possible.
So if you want me to walk through the points, I don't know, just because it's a public meeting, that's maybe a better way to do it. Okay.
Sure. Well, is that okay to do the points of an RFP in a public meeting, or the statement of work?
The statement of work for the RFP.
Right. We don't want to have that right now. We want that to be fair game for everybody, every potential vendor who's going to see it at the same time.
Okay, so we're not going to talk you through the providing you information.
Just providing you feedback so we can get.
Okay. Should I talk then about, because one of my feedback points was on the time frame. Okay. Should we talk about that then?
You can talk about the time frame, and let me just remind myself what you're. Okay. I'm going to call Mike Romanoff from purchasing to hear your question to make sure that. I see what your question is.
Okay.
The last one. Yeah. Hi, Mike. It's Michelle. Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker. The board has some questions about timeline, okay? Hold on 1 second. Can you hear us? Yes. Okay, I think it's actually better if I put in by you.
Okay, great, and we'll just pass you around.
Sure.
This is Kim Hartman speaking. Hi there. Hey, just a question for you, and just, I'm just looking up my calendar, so I have it in front of me here. Let me see here. If I recall, in the document or in the email, the recommendation was that we needed to publicize the RFP two times, of which was between 6 and 10 days. And because we publish typically, or the publishers we use on Thursday, we'd be looking at the 21st and the 28th.
If I release on Tuesday, everything's predicated on getting the scope of work. I'll have everything prepared. All I need to do is drop an approved scope of work from the board into the RFP. So if you can get that to me by, say, Tuesday morning, I can have everything ready. I would have to be able to schedule the ad this afternoon. Because in order for the back to do it a week ahead of time, in order for it to publish on Thursday. So the timeline was, if I can get approval to go ahead and put the ad in, which I will do today, it will publish the first time on the 21st, second time on the 28th, and I've got to wait 2 additional weeks before I can open it. That's the normal process. So we're 14 more days.
Okay, and that was my question. So first of all, when I'm hearing, if we do our job, you can do your job, so that will be our goal. And then...
I'm not going to say that, but yeah, that's true.
Well, I'm saying it for you. But my question was, you had suggested that we actually open the bids the week of the 15th, and I was wondering if it's possible if we can open the bids the week of the 8th, even if it's at the latter end of the week, because that will have given 2 full weeks to actually collect all of the interested parties, of which, parties are already aware, so it's not like this is new news, but it does give 2 full weeks. So, and the reason why I'm asking is not to rush the process, but we do also know that, the more time we actually spend in the actual search, the better. So, for us, the board members, to talk through, but if we think that's reasonable, that's something that's doable.
It's doable. It has to come with board approval to shorten the timeline. And what I'm basing that on is in the procurement rules it states, I quote, the time of publication may be altered if deemed necessary pursuant to, and I think it's another one of the procurement rules, my interpretation of that, when it says the publication timeline, the time of publication, my interpretation is, yes, I can shorten that 2 weeks. Because I publicized twice, I'm going to shorten, rather than it sit out there for 2 weeks, I want to make it a week and a half. So, my interpretation of that, my recommendation is, yes, you can do it.
Okay, and I'm not suggesting 2 weeks, I'm just suggesting 1 week, the week of the 8th, so.
Right, and basically what I'm shortening it from is 2 weeks to 1. So, we can do that. It does have to have board approval.
Okay.
And then I have to document the reasons behind it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike. I think Board Member Perleberg may have a question for you as well.
I think that might be appropriate, I hope. So I think first I'd love to, for us to discuss as a board and publicly, what understanding has changed from our last work studies when we discussed the potential RFP. I kind of think that clarity would be good to start off, so.
Mike, can you speak to the membership versus services issue?
Okay, the exemption?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The procurement rules state, for change back July 14, they now have an area of applicability, and within that rule are certain things that are exempt from the procurement rules. One of the items exempt from the procurement rules is purchases of professional certifications, professional memberships, and conference registrations. ASPA, being an organization that offers memberships, we can
Yes.
Okay. Now, my original conversations, and, I wasn't real clear, and concise when I spoke originally with, some of the administration, and I probably should have, so my fault. My original conversation was, we are members of ASPA. If there is a service that ASPA offers as part of that membership, we can go ahead and use it. I should have clarified, if there's a cost that exceeds the thresholds, to $10,000, if there's a cost that reaches $10,000, we need to compete. In my initial conversations, I didn't continue that clarification, and I should have. So that's kind of where the confusion came on. Yes, we can use them, and we can go with a permanent superintendent search with that. Once I found out that the search was going to be approximately $25,000 or exceed $10,000,
Okay.
I kind of panicked to start calling everybody, saying, no, you can't do it.
All right.
But first, 2,500 was fine, because it was under the threshold. We did cut a PO, and everything was good. But that's where the confusion came in. It didn't clarify this far out as they should.
Well, thank you very much for that clarity and that framework, so appreciate it very much.
Do you need
Not a
the,
problem.
do you need the phone?
Hey, Mike, it's Pam Kirby.
Hi, Nick, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Okay, so I want to go back to Board Member Hartman's line of clarification and take it a few steps further. So what I heard you say is the board can and has to approve a shorter timeline. And as you are reading the procurement code, if deemed necessary pursuant to other procurement rules. So what immediately came to my head is, I'm sure times of crisis would allow us to move things faster. Are you confident that we are within those other procurement rules? You know, you said pursuant to other procurement rules. Are you confident that we are within, that our actions are within those procurement rules? The rationale of why we're doing this fits within those other procurement rules.
Yes, and the other procurement rules, I didn't read them, but when we go down to them, they actually address invitation for bid. Procurement rules reference, RFP has specific rules to do it, but then it references back to the bid because some things are very similar. So it references to R7-1024, which is invitation for bids, and it states, and I quote, if a shorter time is necessary, the school district shall document the specific reasons in the procurement file. So yes, I'm confident that if the board approves a shorter timeline, I can document and I can send it to Michelle or Danny and they can get your approval on what my document's going to say. I'll document the necessity for the shorter timeline and we have it in the procurement files if it gets audited.
So possibly today, if we go down the path to shorten the timeline, it might be helpful, just so we're all buttoned up, that our motion includes the rationale why, so that you have everything you need and you don't have to come back to us.
That would be great. Really, just in the atmosphere of Scottsdale, I think that's critical.
Okay. Okay, and one last question, again, it's one of the Hartman's questions. You said that we would need to schedule this afternoon the notice, public notice. What?
Right, I have two. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, my question was going to be, what are you looking at right now? What vehicle are you looking at to do that within? It sounds like you're ready to go, and I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I have an existing purchase order. I have a blanket purchase order to understand. So I'm good as far as ordering. And basically what we do is I send an email to the newspaper. It has to be in by today, by 5 o'clock today, in order to publish in their publication next week, the 21st. So this afternoon I'll prepare that, take, maybe 15 minutes, and we'll get that over to them, get a confirmation that they will run it on the 21st.
Okay, and so since you already know, like today's their cutoff and, you know, their ad run dates and their timing, it sounds to me like you already know which newspaper that you're looking at.
Yes, there's only one newspaper we can go in. It's the exact name I remember right now. It's Capital Times, but it's a newspaper of the county. It's the official newspaper of the county.
Okay, and it's what we do all of our RFPs in. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes.
Okay, this next question is, it may be for you, I don't know. What about national versus local exposure? Does the county newspaper that you're planning on using somehow roll up into some kind of national exposure?
I'm not aware that it does. It's the official newspaper of Maricopa County. However, what we can do is, I see what you're trying to do is make sure that people, maybe in Chicago or something, might get the advertisement that we're looking for this. I'll utilize every bidders list that I have available to me to get this out there. You're looking for national exposure for superintendent search. I think we asked the company within the specifications within the scope of work.
Well, yeah. Well, hang on, let me finish, because I guess I'm trying to connect a shorter timeline for the RFP to allowing for word to get out to search firms nationally that SUSD's got an RFP. You know, if we. No. It does or does not? Okay, all right, and then, Mr. O'Brien is raising his hand.
Madam President, Board Member Kirby, I think to speak to that, we use a service called azprocure.org.
Mm-hmm.
We post all of our bids and our RFPs to that, and probably, 150 of the 230 districts use it. It's a database that vendors go into to register for the commodities that they want to work within the 4 school districts in Arizona. So if there is a national company that wants to do superintendent searches here in Arizona, they will have or should have registered with that organization. And there's tens of thousands of vendors in that group that we put it on. At the same time, Arizona Capital Times also has a website, so their newspaper is publicized on a website. So if there is a national firm that wants to do things here in Arizona, I think we have enough exposure that we will be able to get that interest.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mike. Does anyone have questions? I'm going to hand you back to Michelle.
Thank you, Mike. Do we think, no more questions for Mike? Can we let him go or keep him on?
On standby.
Okay. All right. We're going to hang up on you, but don't leave the office.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll be here, and meantime, I'll get the exact name of the newspaper, actually.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Can't remember.
All right. Bye-bye.
Kirby. So I have then a question on the scope of work. What I heard him say is the board has to have an approved scope of work. How do we do that? How do we approve, when do we approve the scope of work?
Well, and Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the board needs to approve the scope of
The
work.
board doesn't approve scope of work.
I sent you a draft and asked for your individual feedback so I can synthesize that into a document.
We got it,
But it's not a vote.
draft from the last
Right.
national search that we did. Did everybody get that?
We did. And I'm trying to recall, I didn't bring it with me today, but this may not be agenda size, but I think it's a valid question. Does that scope of work address, ask them to address the process of what they would bring to us? Or do we lay that out for them? Beyond just a July 1st start date. That's an obvious timeline date, search for a new superintendent to begin July 1. But then from that, is it just wide open on their how would they propose back to us, or do we provide guidance?
Pulling it up. As I recall, it was rather.
Brian.
Madam President, Board Member Kirby, the purpose of doing an RFP instead of an IFP, so a bid versus a proposal, is that you have a general scope of service. You know, we want to start date July 1st, we want to do parent meetings, we want to do community meetings, you know, go down that list. But the reason you do an RFP is because you don't know the widget that you want. You know the service that you want, but you might not be the expertise and that complete scope of service that you want. So doing an RFP allows vendors to come in and say, this is how we believe it should be done, this is how we can perform those tasks, and here's the cost. So the process of an RFP allows openness for the vendor, who's expert in doing the search, to look at the district and say, this is what we believe you should do. And then for the district to say, okay, that fell in the general guidelines, and the evaluation committee to say, of 1, 2, 3, 4 vendor, we think 3's ideas and detailed scope is the one that's correct for Scottsdale. And then we look at it and go, okay, well, he's within the range of the price of all the people, so it's not somebody way up here and somebody way up here or down here. And so then that evaluation determines kind of what that plan that they put in together is good, bad, or indifferent. So kind of just a general idea of how the RFP process works.
So I guess, since we don't technically approve the scope of work, we're just providing feedback, and we're not necessarily going to get that back. We can't vote to approve what's in the scope of work. I just want to make sure that that scope of work doesn't force a process, that it's a timeline process from the job posting date to the job fill date. The vendors come back to us.
That's exactly correct, yes.
And I think to that point, it would be important to me to have as much time for community interaction as we can, which is why I think it's important to talk about the timeline. And part of the reason too that I would be more comfortable with a shortened time frame is because just practically, we've just done an interim search, and so the minute something goes out nationally for an interim search, that raises flags to everybody who might be considering permanent, saying, oh, they're looking for an interim, and it won't, pretty soon they're going to be looking for a permanent one too. So I don't feel like losing a week would hurt us, because I have a feeling a lot of people already understand that we're probably going to be looking for an executive search. That's my thought on the time frame. I don't think it'll hurt us to shorten up that week. I think it will allow, as you said before in the department, allow for a longer period of interaction with the stakeholders. Any thoughts? Mr. Bryan.
Madam President, just for clarification purposes, our wonderful Mike Romanoff just sent an email that it's the Arizona Business Gazette, not the Arizona Capital Times.
Okay.
The Arizona Business Gazette, just for board information, is part of the azcentral.com, which is part of the USA Today news network. So, although AZ Gazette might not be national, I think that's a big enough size there that people will see if they want to see it.
Okay.
Sorry, just one clarification.
Thank you. Other thoughts, board members? Anybody ready to make a motion on this afternoon?
Well, I just one last question for Michelle. Is there any legal concerns that you have that you haven't shared with us today about shortening this RFP time?
No.
To cobble together a motion to work on. Which language should I start with, though, on here? Is it just the first paragraph?
Just the.
Yeah, so yeah, you can approve the, you can move to approve the issuance.
Okay, so let me,
And then talk about that.
I'll repeat most of A and then put the time frame on it,
Okay.
correct?
See if it makes a rationale.
And the rationale, okay. I motion to approve the issuance of a request for proposal, RFP, for consulting services to assist the governing board in search for a new Scottsdale Unified School District Superintendent. With the, to expedite the process, to bid opening, I think it's the phrase, the week of February 8th, to optimize the selection and community stakeholder period for the selection of the superintendent. How's that?
You're good.
Mike will be very happy.
I'll second that. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Mike. The next item on the agenda is item 3B, approval of interim superintendent contract between Scottsdale Unified School District and Dr. A. Denise Birdwell. The board will discuss and may vote to approve the contract with Dr. A. Denise Birdwell as interim superintendent. I heard,
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
I saw
Well,
it again.
thank you. I just want to make sure, so discussing the details of this contract, that's,
You can discuss the details. You also have the ability to vote to convene an executive session for legal advice or to direct me to do.
okay.
So I would suggest if there's any legal questions the board members have.
I don't think it's legal, I think it's just specific of the contract, just a few, or
Go ahead,
one
start.
question. I'll start delicately.
Okay?
General leave and vacation leave,
Yes.
days,
Yes.
that, the numbers that, were provided to us in the contract.
Yes.
I just kind of guess I wanted some rationale
Sure.
as far as how many days were chosen for both vacation and sick. I'll leave it at that. How about that?
And Pam will correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the number for both general and vacation that is in the administrative agreement.
Okay.
And it is also the same as what Dr. Peterson had, and we prorated it because the start date and end date are shorter than a full school year. So we prorated it to match. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Well,
right,
yeah.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Hartman?
Okay, thank you. First, I wanted to thank President Sneed and Board Member Kirby and Ms. Marshall for actually working through this process. The document was a very thoughtful, deliverable, so thank you for taking that on. Two just questions. First one, the timeline, which is from, can I say the timeline?
Sure.
1/19 to 6/30. Was there any conversation around the option of extending it if possible, or did we just kind of leave it? What were your thoughts?
We did not have any discussion about that, so.
Is there any benefit of, I mean, right now it allows us to do whatever we need to do, so that's a good answer. Is there any benefit for us contractually with Dr. Birdwell, should we have to extend it, to actually put in this contract the option to extend, or is it kind of put us in the same place right now?
Can I add to that question? Because I'm kind of, as you've asked it, I'm starting to wonder, should we at a certain point, or give ourselves and give Dr. Birdwell a date in where, if we're going to have that conversation, it would happen by this date or something? I don't know if that's
We could certainly add.
a valid consideration, or?
Sure.
Okay, along the same line of thought.
Kirby, sorry.
As an alternative to doing what Vice President Perleberg suggested, do we have at our disposal while we're in the contract to negotiate a modification to the contract?
You can call an executive session to discuss her employment with her anytime you choose, and you could discuss with her that, whether you have a desire to renegotiate the contract or talk about other terms. She would not be obligated to accept anything different, of course, but you can have that conversation anytime you choose.
My thought is we're just going out for an RFP for superintendent search, that kind of gives mix to alter this or to include an extension clause would give a mixed message as to the sincerity of our search. And of course, anybody can apply. So if Dr. Birdwell chooses to engage in the search process for superintendent, she comes in at the same level playing field as much as possible as everyone else in the process. And so I would be uncomfortable sending a mixed message as far as an extension of contract. And even if we decide that we would like to do an extension of contract, if something happens in the search firm that sends us in a different direction, we just come back to the table and say it at the time. I would think we just look at, do we negotiate another contract if the search firm doesn't, if the search doesn't go through. But to put something in this contract, I think sends a mixed message. I'm not comfortable. Mrs. Hartman.
Okay. So I'm satisfied with that. I just was really interested if you just had the conversation, and that seems like an appropriate approach to it. My second question is really kind of a process versus a contract question, but it could have contractual implications. So I'm just wondering if you were, having your conversations, if you had any dialogue around in the duty section of the contract. It just speaks to duties as defined by policy and job description, and very, very reasonable language. One of the takeaways from the interview, I can talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't think I can talk about it because
yeah, if you want to go into executive to ask your question. Your legal question.
Let's hold on to it because it's really, I'm not sure it merits a whole exec session.
Okay. I can speak generally. I don't know if it will address what you're thinking, but the duties section in the superintendent's contract is supposed to be kind of broad and generic, so that the duties, they're listed in the policy, that they're, I don't think there is a job description, is there, Pam? No. Yeah. So that the superintendent is basically expected to do everything that a superintendent would do, if that makes sense, and not to limit it so that somebody can't point to it and say, well, I'm not required to do that, kind of thing. That probably doesn't address.
Oh, it addresses.
Okay.
But the question, let me hold on.
Okay.
I think we have a few questions like that. So we're noticed that we can go into.
Okay.
Okay, so I also wanted to add to the thank you, Dr. Sitton and Mr. Bryant, because they were on call too, and from an HR and
Chris Costanzo in payroll, she was very helpful.
This was a true team effort in a very quick amount of time. So it was a pleasure working with you and negotiating.
Likewise.
With you. One thing that I completely agree with this contract. One thing that I just wanted to bring to the board's attention to potentially head off any negative perceptions, because I believe it's completely justifiable. It's not called out in this contract. I believe that Dr. Birdwell, it was discussed with Dr. Birdwell or her attorney. I think we're all in agreement with it. Please speak up if you're not. On the vacation and general leave, because Dr. Birdwell had some previous commitments for her consulting, I think there are 4 days maybe?
I think so. I'm looking at
I believe they were all with ASA.
Right. Her general leave and vacation will be front-loaded and not accrued through the 5.5 months. And so that word front-loaded is not in here, but that's what's going to happen. And so I just wanted, from a perception standpoint, if she takes a vacation day after the first 3 weeks of employment, we all knew it, we agreed to it, and it was part of the discussion that we had.
And if I could clarify, front-loading is not something that is unusual. We did it with Dr. Peterson's contract. I don't know whether we did it with all our previous superintendents.
Oh, I don't know.
Dr. Maloney, but it was definitely part of.
There are some employee groups that we do give, we front load some days for certain reasons and stuff, so it's not very unusual.
Oh, I thought it was only the superintendent. It's not.
No, we give teachers a couple days
Oh,
at the
okay.
very beginning, especially new teachers in case
Got
they
it.
get
Thank
sick right
you.
when they get in.
I didn't know that.
So there are some other employee groups for certain reasons that we give.
Well, that's even better then. So
That's fine.
I just wanted to bring that to your attention, but, I have no issue with the practice in this case.
And I don't think it's unusual for a new employee to sometimes come in and say, you know, this came up, but I had a couple previous commitments, can we accommodate it? So,
They were, and for your information, they were 2 days in February and 2 days in March.
and she did agree to take a vacation day for that purpose. I'd really like to thank everybody who has helped over the past few days to get to this point. It was a very thoughtful and deliberative process. So with that, do you want to make a motion?
Sure, unless you would like to.
No, go right ahead.
I move to approve the interim superintendent contract between Scottsdale Unified School District and Dr. Aiden Burgo, as presented.
Second. Second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. And, the last item on our agenda before adjournment is future items. Board members may propose topics for future consideration. Yeah, we're pretty loaded up, okay. I just hold my breath saying. So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone.